Commander Lyeth stood before the massive crystal screen that filled the entire wall of the command center. The screen showed a map of their galaxy, but now it looked like a disease was spreading across it. Red dots marked the places where the Vorthok swarm had already attacked. Each red dot meant billions of dead people. Commander called out Officer Neth from his station. His voice shook with fear. The bioships have reached the outer ring. Colony 7-9 just went dark. Lyeth closed all 6 of his eyes. Colony 7-9 was home to 2 million Carolians. Now they were all gone. The bioships had eaten them alive, like they had eaten everyone else in their path. The Corallian Empire had been peaceful for 3,000 years. 12 different alien species lived together in harmony. They built beautiful cities made of living crystal that sang in the wind. Their children played in gardens that floated in space. Their greatest minds spent their time writing poetry and painting pictures of distant stars. But none of that mattered now. The Vorthok were coming, and the Carolines had no way to fight them. "Show me the latest reports," Lyeth said quietly. The crystal screen changed to show video messages from across the Empire. A Corallian mother held her crying child as bioships landed on her world. A group of students tried to hide in their school. As acid rain fell from the sky, an old philosopher sat alone in his garden, waiting for death to come. "They grow their ships instead of building them," said Science Officer Keth. "The bioships are alive. They heal themselves when we damage them. They eat our people and use their bodies to make more ships." Lyeth had seen the reports. The Vorthok bioships looked like giant insects made of meat and bone. They had thousands of teeth and acid for blood. When they attacked a planet, they would land and start eating everything alive. Plants, animals, people, it did not matter. They ate it all and grew bigger and stronger. "What about our fleet?" Lyeth asked. Captain Reth shook his head sadly. "Our ships are beautiful, but they are not made for war. We use them to explore new worlds and trade with other species. The bioships destroy them easily." The Carolines had tried to fight back. Their crystal ships could fly faster than light, and their computers were very smart. But when the bioships attacked, the crystal broke like glass. The Corallian weapons were made to cut through rocks for mining, not to kill living creatures. "Sir," said Communications Officer Zeth, "we are getting more distress calls. The colonies on the inner ring are asking for help." "Help we cannot give," Lyeth whispered. He looked around the command center. Every face showed the same expression, hopeless fear. These were good people who had never hurt anyone. They had spent their whole lives learning and creating beautiful things. Now they were all going to die because they did not know how to kill. "There is one option," said Officer Neth quietly. "The ancient protocol." Everyone in the room became very quiet. The ancient protocol was old, older than their empire. It was a way to call for help from any species in the galaxy that might hear them, but no one had used it in over 1,000 years. "If we use the ancient protocol," said Captain Reth, "we might get help from species we have never met. We do not know if they will be friendly. We do not know if anyone will even answer," added Science Officer Keth. Lyeth looked at the screen again. More red dots appeared as he watched. The Vorthok were moving faster now. At this rate, they would reach the homeworld of Serenity Prime in less than 10 days. "How many people live in our empire?" he asked. 400 billion, answered Officer Neth. "And how many will be alive in 20 days if we do nothing?" No one answered because they all knew. 0. Every single person in the Corallian Empire would be dead in 20 days. "Send the ancient protocol," Lyeth commanded. "Broadcast it on all frequencies. Use every communication crystal we have." Should the message say, "Communications Officer Zeth"? Lyeth thought for a moment. How do you ask strangers to die for you? How do you make them care about people they have never met? "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them we are dying. Tell them our children are crying as darkness eats the light of our worlds. Tell them that if any civilization in this galaxy knows how to wage war, we beg them to save us from extinction." The communications officer began typing the message. Crystal computers would translate it into every known language, and send it across the galaxy. Maybe someone would hear it. Maybe someone would care. Leia sat down in his command chair and waited. In 10 days, the bio ships would arrive at Serenity Prime. In 10 days, the last free world in the Corellian Empire would fall. Far away on a small blue planet, orbiting a yellow star, Deep Space Listening Post detected an alien signal. The message was desperate and sad, but it was also clear. Someone was asking for help. On Earth, military computers began to decode the message. What they found would change everything. Admiral Kim Tae walked into the war room deep under the mountains of Colorado. The room was filled with screens and computers that never stopped working. Officers sat at their desks, watching signals from across the galaxy. This was Earth's strategic command center, where humans planned their wars. Admiral called Lieutenant Park Jin from his computer station. "We have finished translating the alien message. You need to see this." Tae walked over to the big screen. In the center of the room, the alien words looked like they were made of crystal and light. They were beautiful, but the meaning behind them was terrible. "Read it to me," Tae said. Park Jin cleared his throat. "We are dying. Our children cry as darkness consumes the light. If any civilization possesses the power to wage war, we beg you, save us from extinction." The room became very quiet. Every human officer stopped what they were doing and listened. They had heard many distress calls before, but this one was different. This one came from very far away, from aliens they had never met. "Show me what we know about these Corellians," Tae ordered. The screen changed to show pictures and videos that came with the alien message. The Corellians looked like tall, thin people with 6 eyes and blue skin. Their cities were made of crystal and floated in space like giant flowers. Their ships looked like works of art, all curves and pretty colors. "They are herbivores," explained Captain Lee So as she studied the data. "They eat only plants. Their society is based on art, music, and philosophy." "They have no military? No military at all?" Tae asked. "None. They have never fought a war. They do not even have weapons on their ships." Tae shook his head. How could an entire civilization survive without knowing how to fight? On Earth, humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. Every country had armies. Every person knew that sometimes you had to fight to stay alive. "What about these bioships they mentioned?" he asked. Lieutenant Park Jin brought up new images on the screen. The bioships looked like nightmare creatures from hell. They were alive, made of meat and bone and teeth. Some were as big as cities. They moved through space like giant insects, eating everything in their path. "The Vorthok swarm," Park Jin explained. "They grow their ships instead of building them. The ships can heal themselves when damaged. They reproduce by eating other life forms." "Biological warfare," said Major Choi Min from her station. "They turn their enemies into food and use that food to make more ships." Tae studied the images carefully. He had fought many enemies in his 30 years as a soldier. He had seen humans do terrible things to each other, but he had never seen anything like this. "How many Corellians are there?" he asked. 400 billion spread across 12 star systems, answered Captain Lee So. "And how many bioships?" "Unknown, but intelligence estimates over 1 million active vessels, with more being born every day." Tae walked to the window that looked out over the military base. He could see human soldiers training for war. Some were practicing with rifles. Others were learning how to fly fighter jets. "All of them knew that their job was to kill the enemies of humanity, sir," said Lieutenant Park Jin. "Should we respond to their message?" Tae turned back to face his officers. "What do our allies say?" "The European Federation wants to send aid," reported Major Choi Min. "The Asian Alliance is preparing their fleet. The African Union is loading their ships with weapons." "Good," Tae said. "And our ships?" Captain Lee So smiled for the first time that day. "The fleet is ready, Admiral. We have been preparing for this kind of mission for years." Tae looked at the screen again. Tae now showed the human fleet that was getting ready to launch. The ships looked nothing like the pretty Corellian vessels. Human ships were built for one purpose: to destroy their enemies. The stealth frigates were long and thin. covered in armor and bristling with railguns that could shoot metal bullets at incredible speed. The assault carriers were packed with hundreds of fighter jets, each one piloted by a human who had trained their whole life to kill. And then there was the Vengeance. The massive dreadnought was over 1 kilometer long and covered in weapons. It had enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. The ship's hull was painted black, and its name was written in red letters that seemed to glow in the darkness.
Ow.
Long to reach the Corellian homeworld? Tay asked. 17 hours at maximum jump speed, answered the navigation officer. Tay nodded. 17 hours to cross half the galaxy and arrive at a war that had already been going on for months. 17 hours to show these bioships what happened when they messed with innocent people. All ships prepare for jump, he ordered. Set coordinates for Serenity Prime. We are going to teach the galaxy something important today. What is that, sir? Asked Lieutenant Park Jin. Tay's eyes were cold as ice. That when someone asks humanity for help in a war, we do not just send soldiers. We send death itself. The human fleet powered up their jump engines. In space, the bioships were still eating the Corellian worlds, thinking they had already won. They had no idea that hell was coming for them. The bioships covered the sky above. Serenity Prime like a black cloud of death. Thousands of them floated in space, each one alive and hungry. They looked like giant insects made of meat and bone, with long tentacles that dripped acid onto the crystal cities below. Queen-Strain Vexthera was the largest of them all. She was the mother of the swarm, and through her mind she could feel every single bioship around the planet. They were all her children, and they were all feeding. The acid rain fell on the beautiful crystal towers of the Corellian capital city. Where the acid touched, the crystal melted like ice in the sun. Buildings that had stood for 1,000 years crumbled into dust. The Corellians ran through the streets, screaming and crying, but there was nowhere to hide. Feed, my children, Vexthera whispered through the hive mind. Grow strong on their flesh. The smaller bioships landed in the city like giant spiders. Their mouths opened wide, showing rows of sharp teeth. They began to eat everything they could find: people, animals, plants, even the buildings themselves. With each bite, they grew a little bigger and a little stronger. High Counselor Lyeth watched from his command center as his world died around him. The crystal screen showed the same terrible scene from every part of the planet. His people were being eaten alive, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Sir, said Officer Neth, his voice shaking, long-range sensors are detecting something strange. What now? Lyeth asked. He was too tired and sad to care anymore. There is a distortion in space, about 1 million kilometers out. Something is coming. On the screen, space itself seemed to tear open like fabric. A hole appeared in the darkness, and through that hole came ships. But these were not Corellian ships made of crystalline light. These ships were black and angular, like metal wolves with their teeth showing. Queen-Strain Vexthera felt a moment of confusion through the hive mind. These new ships were small compared to her bioships, but they moved differently. They moved like predators. Captain Yoon sat in the cockpit of her fighter jet as it screamed out of the carrier ship. Round her, 200 other human pilots did the same thing. They had trained for this moment their whole lives, the chance to fight real aliens in space. All fighters, this is Wolf Leader, she spoke into her radio.
Ow.
Remember your training. These bioships are alive, so aim for the soft spots. Make every shot count. The human fighters were tiny compared to the bioships, but they were fast. They flew through the swarm like angry wasps, their railguns spitting metal bullets at incredible speed. Each bullet was designed to punch through armor, and the bioships had no armor, only soft. Living flesh, the first bioship to die was the size of a football stadium. Captain Yoon flew straight at it, her guns blazing. The metal bullets tore through its body like it was made of paper. Green blood sprayed into space as the creature screamed and died. Target destroyed, she reported, moving to the next one. Commander Han Su stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the battle through the ship's cameras. The massive dreadnought was too big to move quickly, but it did not need to. It had other ways to kill. Fire nuclear missiles, he ordered. Target the largest bioships. 20 nuclear warheads launched from the Vengeance's missile tubes. Each one was powerful enough to destroy a city. They flew through space toward the biggest bioships, the ones that were eating the most Carolians. When the first missile hit, it created a ball of fire brighter than the sun. The bioship simply disappeared, turned into atoms in a fraction of a second. The explosion was so bright that everyone on the planet could see it, even through the acid clouds. Quinstrain Vexasara felt the death of her children like physical pain. These new ships were killing her bioships faster than she could replace them. Through the hive mind, she could feel her children's fear and confusion. They had never faced enemies like this before. High Counselor Liath watched the battle in amazement. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They were fast and deadly, but also very smart. They worked together like parts of a machine, each ship knowing exactly what the others were doing. By the crystal light, he whispered, "What have we summoned?" Lieutenant Colonel Kimbo led her soldiers through the corridors of a bioship that was still alive. The walls around them pulsed like a heartbeat, and the floor was soft and wet under their boots. It was like being inside a giant animal. "Plant the charges here," she ordered her team. Each soldier carried enough explosives to blow up a building. They placed the bombs at key points inside the bioship's body. The bioship tried to fight back. Tentacles grew from the walls, trying to grab the human soldiers. Acid dripped from the ceiling, trying to burn through their armor, but the humans were ready for this. Their armor was designed to protect them from anything, and their weapons could cut through the living walls like butter. "Charges set," reported Sergeant Park. 30 seconds to detonation. The human soldiers ran through the bioship's corridors as fast as they could. Behind them, the explosives went off one by one, tearing the creature apart from the inside. They reached their escape ship just as the bioship died, screams echoing through space. The battle lasted only 4 hours. When it was over, the space around Serenity Prime was filled with the floating remains of dead bioships. The humans had destroyed over 3,000 of them without losing a single ship. Queenstrain Vexera was dead, her massive body floating in pieces among the debris. The swarm was broken, the survivors fleeing into deep space. The Carolians were saved, but they would never be the same. They had seen what their rescuers were capable of, and it frightened them almost as much as the bioships had. The news of Queenstrain Vexthera's death spread through the Vorthok swarm like wildfire. Across the galaxy, billions of bioships felt her final scream through the hive mind. The impossible had happened. Something had killed their queen. The 3 remaining hive queens were furious. For millions of years, nothing had been able to stop the swarm. They had eaten entire civilizations, consumed whole star systems, and grown stronger with each victory. These small creatures from a tiny blue planet had destroyed one of their greatest queens. "Find them," commanded Queenstrain Morgatha, her massive brain pulsing with rage. "Find their home world and eat everything that lives there." 3 enormous fleets began moving toward human space. Each fleet contained over 10,000 bioships, including massive breeding vessels the size of moons. The Vorthok were not just coming to fight, they were coming to consume humanity entirely. But the humans were not waiting for them to arrive, Captain. Omin sat in the pilot's seat of the Shadowbane, a ship unlike any other in the human fleet. It was built for stealth and speed, its black hull designed to be invisible to enemy sensors. But what made it truly special was the Corallian technology built into its core. Crystal computers that could predict enemy movements and communication arrays that could intercept Vorthok biosignals. "Target acquired," whispered Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. "Breeding vessel, approximately 50 kilometers long. It's making new bioships." Omin could see the massive creature through the ship's cameras. It looked like a giant whale, made of meat and tentacles, floating in the darkness between stars. Smaller bioships flew in and out of its mouth like parasites, carrying raw materials to feed the breeding process. "Take us in," Omin ordered. Silent approach. The Shadowbane drifted toward the breeding vessel like a ghost, its engines made. No sound in the vacuum of space, and its hull was coated with materials that absorbed enemy scans. To the Vorthok, it was invisible. "Teleportation chambers ready," reported Sergeant Namekey from the back of the ship. He and his team wore special armor that could adapt to any environment. Their bodies were enhanced with drugs that made them faster and stronger than normal humans. Each man carried enough explosives to level a city block. "Remember," Omen said over the radio, "we are not here to fight. We are here to kill. Get in, plant the charges, and get out." No heroics. The human soldiers disappeared in flashes of light as the teleportation system sent them directly into the breeding vessel's body. They materialized inside corridors made of living flesh, their boots splashing in pools of green blood. The bioship's immune system tried to stop them immediately. Tentacles grew from the walls, trying to grab the intruders. Acid sprayed from hidden glands, trying to dissolve their armor. But the humans moved too fast and hit too hard. Sergeant Namki carved through a wall of muscle with his plasma cutter, revealing a chamber where new bioships were growing like grotesque fruit. Each one was still soft and vulnerable, fed by tubes that pumped nutrients from the parent vessel. "Found the nursery," he reported. "Planting charges now." The antimatter bombs were small, each one no bigger than a briefcase. But when they exploded, they would release enough energy to destroy an entire city. Namki placed them carefully throughout the breeding chamber, making sure the explosion would kill every developing bioship. "Charges set," he said. To detonation. The human soldiers ran through the creature's body as alarms began to sound. The breeding vessel finally realized it had been invaded, but it was too late. The soldiers reached their extraction point just as the bombs went off. The explosion was visible from 100 light-years away, where the breeding vessel had been. There was now only expanding gas and debris. Millions of unborn bioships died in an instant, their screams echoing through the hive mind. Major Limha watched the explosion from her command ship, the intelligence gatherer. Her job was different from the soldiers who fought on the front lines. She was a hunter of information, and her prey was knowledge. "Bring in the prisoners," she ordered. Her soldiers dragged 3 captured Vorthok into the interrogation chamber. They were smaller bioships that had been disabled rather than destroyed, their crews taken alive for questioning. The aliens looked like giant insects with too many eyes and sharp claws, but they were helpless now. "Begin the procedure," Limha said coldly. The humans had developed special techniques for getting information from alien minds. They used drugs that caused terrible pain, machines that could read brain patterns, psychological pressure that broke even the strongest will. It was not pleasant to watch, but it was effective. "They are telling us about their breeding worlds," reported Dr. Kim from the medical station. 7 planets in the outer rim where they grow new queens." "Excellent," Limha said. "Mark them for orbital bombardment." When the interrogation was finished, the Vorthok prisoners were killed quickly and efficiently. The humans did not keep prisoners of war. They only kept sources of information until that information was extracted. Admiral Tay Limha reported over the communication system. "We have located the primary breeding worlds. Request permission to sterilize them." "Permission granted," came the reply. "Show them what happens when they threaten humanity." The bombing began 3 days later. Human ships appeared over each breeding world and opened fire with nuclear weapons. The planets burned for weeks, their surfaces turned to glass by the heat of atomic fire. Every Vorthok egg, every developing queen, every breeding facility was destroyed completely. High Counselor Lieth watched the news reports from his crystal palace on Serenity Prime. The humans were not just fighting their Vorthok, they were hunting them down like animals and killing them systematically. It was efficient, it was effective, and it was terrifying. "They fight like machines," he said to his advisors. "No emotion, no mercy, just pure killing efficiency." The Caroleans had asked for help, and humanity had answered. But now they were beginning to wonder if their saviors might be more dangerous than their enemies had ever been. In the darkness between stars, the hunt continued. The massive alien hive floated in the darkness of space like a diseased moon. Its surface pulsed with strange lights that ran through veins across its shell. This was the home of the Vorthok, the insect-like creatures that had been killing and eating other races across the galaxy. Billions of bioships surrounded their queen world. Every single member of the deadly swarm had come here for the final battle. They knew the humans were coming, and they were ready to fight to the death. Admiral Kimte stood on the bridge of her warship, looking out at the enemy through the viewing screen. Her ship was called the Retribution, and it was the most powerful weapon humanity had ever built. Around her floated hundreds of other human ships, along with the crystal-like vessels of their new allies, the Carolians. The Carolians had been fighting the swarm for decades before humans arrived in this part of space. Now they worked together, the aliens providing communication help while the humans brought their weapons of war. "Sir, our biggest weapon is ready to fire," Captain Park said from his station. "All kinetic missiles are locked on target," Commander Yang added from across the bridge. Admiral Tay nodded. "Begin the attack." The battle started with pure destruction. Massive projectiles moving at nearly the speed of light smashed into the hive world. The outer shell cracked and broke apart, revealing the living tissue underneath. The Vorthok had grown their homeworld like a giant organism, and now it was bleeding. Human soldiers and small attack ships dove into the wounds in the hive. These Marines had been changed with technology, their bodies enhanced with metal and computer parts too, make them stronger and faster. Colonel Esioda led them into the living corridors of the alien world. Inside the hive, the fighting became close and personal. The passages were made of flesh and bone that moved and tried to trap the human soldiers. Strange creatures that looked like giant insects attacked from the walls and ceiling. But the humans had brought their most dangerous weapon, soldiers trained to fight with their minds. These specialists attacked the hive mind that connected all the Vorthok together. It's protected by advanced technology. They dove into the alien consciousness and began tearing it apart from the inside. The Vorthok fought back with everything they had. Their bioships fired living weapons that ate through metal. Swarms of smaller creatures tried to overwhelm the human forces with pure numbers. The hive itself began changing its shape, trying to crush the invaders inside its body. Admiral Tay watched the battle from her bridge as explosions lit up the darkness around the hive world. Human ships were being destroyed, but they kept pushing forward. Carolines provided support, their crystal ships creating shields of energy to protect the human vessels. Inside the hive, Colonel Esioda and her Marines fought their way toward the center. They moved through passages that felt like being inside a giant stomach, the walls wet and warm around them. Vorthok warriors attacked them at every turn. But the enhanced humans were faster and stronger. The mind warriors were winning. They're invisible. Battle. Deep in the hive's consciousness, they found the core of the swarm's collective intelligence. It was like a vast web connecting billions of alien minds across the galaxy. Carefully, they began cutting the connections one by one. The hive world began to shake and convulse. The Vorthok could feel their connection to each other weakening. Panic spread through their ranks as individual creatures began to think for themselves for the first time in millions of years. Then it happened. The human mind warriors reached the center of the hive's consciousness and destroyed it completely. A scream of pure agony echoed across all radio frequencies as the collective mind died. The effect was immediate and total. Every Vorthok bioship in space suddenly went dark and silent. Across the entire galaxy, billions of the creatures died instantly as their connection to the hive mind was severed. They had lived as one giant organism for so long that they could not survive as individuals. The swarm was extinct. Admiral Tay stood quietly on her bridge, watching the dead hive world drift in space. Around her, the human fleet began establishing patrol stations throughout the area. The threat was over, but humanity would make sure it never returned. A message came through from High Counselor Lieth, the leader of the Carolians. His crystal-like face appeared on the communication screen, and his voice carried a note of worry. "We are grateful for what you have done," he said, "but we must ask, what have we become part of by allying with you?" Admiral Tay looked at the alien leader with calm, steady eyes. Her expression showed no emotion as she gave her answer. "You are under our protection now," she said simply. "No threat will ever rise against you again." The words sounded like a promise, but they also sounded like something else. The Carolians had been saved from one master, but now they had another, The question was whether humanity would be a gentler ruler than the swarm had been an enemy.